Now, Matt, Justify becomes the 13th Triple Crown winner. I think we start talking about where he fits in history. He's the most lightly raced of this group, but interesting in especially thinking about what he's accomplished so quickly in his career. Where do you think he might fit in with the all-time greats or the 13 immortal Triple Crown winners?
Well, it's interesting. When you talk about the Triple Crown winners, of course, Secretariat is at the top and way above all the others with the times that he ran in all three races and the 2:24 in the Belmont Stakes, even though it was against a small field. That kind of record is just is so amazing that I don't know if anybody will ever get on that level. And then in the modern era, the each of those series were so different. With Affirmed and Alydar, they had that unique feature of that rivalry and that head-to-head battle in all three of the races, and that makes that special. And for so many people, American Pharoah being the one to end the 37-year drought. For me, it's very hard to rank them in there, but certainly maybe Justify has a lot of similarities with Seattle Slew, both of them being undefeated Triple Crown winners.
Right, and Seattle Slew, I think I rate Seattle Slew a little bit higher than you do. I remember I was there when Seattle Slew dominated Affirmed as a 4-year-old. Affirmed was still a 3-year-old, but those two races weren't really close. So Seattle Slew, I agree with you, most in common with Justify to this point. 2 undefeated Triple Crown winners, 2 speed horses, 2 horses who kind of did what they needed to do in the Triple Crown, didn't win by 5, 8, 10 lengths in any of the races, but and maybe Slew won. His margins were a little bit bigger than Justify, but they weren't overperformance. I'm with you. Secretariat has to be number one. Citation, of course, though. Citation, we need to mention him. Of the horses before the first drought, Citation certainly with those long winning streaks he had and the way he won the Triple Crown. Different kind of racing back then, but Citation certainly is an all-time great. Other ones back then, War Admiral certainly won a ton. Whirl Away with his exciting come-from-behind style. Count Fleet was one of the most dominant Triple Crown winners of all time. More recently, American Pharoah. American Pharoah won his Triple Crown races easier than Justify. They each had one more tough race. American Pharoah in the Derby and Justify in the Preakness. But American Pharoah did run a little faster than Justify. But considering what he's done and the fact that he's undefeated and gone from such a short amount of time unraced to Triple Crown winner, it's easy for me to rate Justify right there with American Pharoah, and to this point with Seattle Slew. Affirmed was different, much more racing at this point, and he had a great rival. We can't rate Justify in the Secretariat realm, though, for sure. I'm also interested to see, what happens later in his career. A lot of these horses we're talking about, other than Secretariat, went on to race quite a bit after the Triple Crown. Even American Pharoah took it through the Breeders' Cup Classic and a winning Breeders' Cup Classic performance. So I think Justify's ultimate place in history will depend a little bit whether he gets 2 or 3 more races to see where he fits in on an all-time level.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. And with rating some of the Triple Crown performances, it has to do with what was going on there in the series at those points, because for so many people, American Pharoah has a really special place in their hearts and in history because he broke the 37-year streak. It was a little bit of a different feeling. It was exciting at Belmont Park when he was coming down the stretch, but it was a little bit of a different feeling just 3 years later from American Pharoah's victory when Justify won the Belmont.
Yeah, right on, Matt, because American Pharoah, I was in the stands as a kid for Secretariat, and I was there for American Pharoah. I think there was more of an emotional emotional release, if you will, where it had been so long since we saw a Triple Crown winner, and that only added to everything. And now, much like after Secretariat, we got some Triple Crown winners, and now 3 years after American Pharoah, we saw a Triple Crown winner. It was more of a pure celebration for an undefeated Triple Crown winner, and that's another thing about Justify when we're talking about his place in history. The Apollo's Curse. He's the first horse to do it in almost a century and a half. He's only the second Triple Crown winner to go through the series undefeated. That more points on Justify's behalf for those two accomplishments.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it'll be really important to see how many more times Justify runs, and if he can keep his winning streak going for the rest of his career.
Absolutely, and hopefully we will see Justify again. The connections are saying the right things now. I do. The skeptical part of me, knows that that's PR, and that's they're saying what they're supposed to be saying at this point. But I think there's reason for them to want to stick around and be in the Breeders' Cup Classic like American Pharoah did at the very least.
Yeah, I agree with that. But again, we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be tremendously surprised if he doesn't run again. And probably somewhere in between, I see him having 2 more races in his career. A prep race in September for the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Right. You've been saying that for a few weeks now, Matt, and that makes a lot of sense to me. The optimist in me wants to see 2 or 3 more races. I don't see him racing next year. The pessimist in me worries that any misstep along the way, any minor physical setback would usher in the retirement of Justify. But we certainly hope to have him right back here in Louisville, November, for the Breeders' Cup Classic and a chance at what do they call it, Matt? The Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam, second Grand Slam winner, as American Pharoah did it in 2015.